cards again. We know this is what we're meant to do. So we wake up, put our feet on the floor, go and conquer the day like a warrior, like warriors. Cause that's what a tribe does. We got your back so you can relax and focus on all the important stuff, like getting your business done. This is our tribe. We look out for each other. That's right, that's right. This is our tribe. We help each other grow in business and life. That's right, that's right. No need to panic anymore. We got lots of support and an army of warriors by our side. We fight the good fight when we unite. We fight the good fight when we unite. Cause that's what a tribe does. We got your back so you can relax and focus on all the important stuff, like getting your business done. This is our tribe. We look out for each other. That's right, that's right. This is our tribe. We help each other grow in business and life. That's right, that's right.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sondra Ray, and I am the host of... Oh, it's reflected on Peter. Okay, all right, I muted him. Good. Hi, I'm Sondra. Welcome to the Coffee Chat Show, and I am hosting with all the amazing gentlemen in the room today. Get to be the solo woman. It's good. It's good. Today we're going to talk about corporate governance for startups and small companies. In layman's terms, the process and procedures and structures you need for your business. I'll say it in the big fancy terms and in the layman terms. So I am super excited to be co-hosting with the Mr. Peter. How are you today?
Well, other than my mess up on YouTube, brilliantly. But you know what? It happens. It happens.
Yeah, that echo. Yeah, I had it echoing in my ear too. I was like, oh, wait a minute. That's because I have it streaming on the other. Yeah, which window? Which window is it coming from? Awesome. How do you want to get started?
Well, I think it's an absolutely brilliant topic, and I think that with the topic, and I know that this is something that Nastine actually teaches on as well, so it's a pity that Nastine is not here. However, I know that the broad description of what corporate governance is, and then the way that it's applied in spaces, is there to protect, and I think it's there to protect across the board, which is why I'm really glad that Rob is here, because we do have somebody that does understand the space. But I think that this show is going to be more of a conversational style, because it's going to be based on opinions of what that looks like. So I think don't be scared to get involved, because everybody's opinion matters. So let's have some fun with this topic. Rob, I would love to bring you into this conversation.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Sondra. Yeah, so I think Sondra's definition is on point. Just to expand, like from my view on that, is basically corporate governance it's a system, and it consists of, you know, things like rules, practices, and procedures that you're going to use to kind of guide and control your entity. And I think it's quite essential for especially startups and small companies to establish some kind of corporate governance practices early on, so that it kind of supports growth, you know. So yeah, just some topics that maybe, Peter, we can look at discussing is, you know, the role of like the directors or director in the company, some ideas around establishing policies and procedures. These could be things like employee handbooks, code of conduct, some financial controls, and then obviously a bit of financial oversight reporting. So what we would look at, for ourselves in the financial reporting. And then if there are partners and other shareholders, then that would also fall part of corporate governance, is the kind of transparency and the communication to them. And then obviously kind of looking at how do we adapt as the company grows, because if you're a one-man show or 1.5-man show, then you're not going to need too much heavy policies and procedures to begin with. But as soon as you start expanding, you're going to have to look at updating those things or putting more of those things in place. So that's,
Oh,
the gist of it.
I agree. Everybody has to start somewhere. So I think, the basics of one to where to start, because a lot of people have amazing ideas about businesses and I want to create this and I want to create that. So what would be like the first steps of setting up a business? Generically, of course, because I know every place in the world has a little bit of different flair.
Yeah, I would say if how the company was formed is understood, right? Especially when there's more than kind of one founder, because often you'll have a technical founder and then someone who wants to do the marketing, and they very excited to get going, develop, market. But as soon as the things start expanding, there's no simple kind of understanding of what this company entails. So I would say document the understanding from everyone involved right in the beginning. And it doesn't have to be detailed. It can be a coffee shop style conversation, just to say, okay, so what are you doing? What am I doing? So that's well understood, because you can't have then one person doing 90% of the work and the other individual wanting 50% of the revenue. So I'd say that's a very good place to start.
Oh, awesome. So, I mean, my understanding of corporate governance is based on what I overhear Nastine teach. So, and I get to overhear her a lot. So, for me, corporate governance, I think if done correctly, basically creates the handbook by which everybody functions. So that it keeps everybody on the same page. It keeps everybody, it creates a space of open communication. And it creates a space where everybody knows exactly where they are and what their role is and what the limit of their capacity is within that space, what they can do, what they shouldn't do. But one of my thoughts in that space has always been, especially young entrepreneurs, perhaps future leaders, perhaps people that are going to start small but end big. If they are functioning within that space and they're exercising with corporate governance, and we need to understand that these are potentially our future leaders. What is the role of ethics within corporate governance? And I think that, to me, is because you can create a like a corporate governance Bible. This is what our space adheres to, but how does the ethics come into play within that space? And for me, that's an incredible conversation, because I noticed that when Nastine was engaging with her students and she was talking about ethics and corporate governance, how her students were responding, going, this is something that we should be doing, and this is something that we should not be doing ethically, and can we build out our space and that governance in such a way that everybody is taken into consideration, not only themselves, but maybe the spaces that they do business with. So I think having ethics within corporate governance is probably a huge thing at the moment, or it's probably a huge topic at the moment. So I'm very curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are on the ethics in that space.
Is that directed at someone specific there, Peter?
But that's directed at anyone, because I'm pretty sure everyone understands the thought process of ethics, but not everybody understands the space of corporate governance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think, yeah, Peter, I think that's yeah. I mean, the shift in the modern workplace is going a lot towards ethical responsibility, social responsibility, and basically kind of trying to tie in all the elements that would make kind of good governance. And you know, so, and I think that's also like, as a company expands, if it does expand fast and there's no structure, a lot of things can, you know, you see a lot of companies where there's fallouts with directors, fallouts with shareholders, because different expectations that maybe were not clear at the start, or someone was thinking the company is going to go this way. You know, you had that whole fallout with Sam Altman and ChatGPT, where, you know, the board kind of just threw him out because of who knows why. But, you know, there was obviously, in the case like that, there was a lot of misunderstanding in terms of what the shareholder wanted versus what the board wanted versus what the directors were doing. So I think ethics is very good to incorporate as part of the procedure, because then that kind of governs how people will operate within the various structures. You know? And even if it's I think a one-man startup, it's still good to start getting an idea for what that looks like, for when the business starts expanding, you know. But yeah, I think ethics and also the kind of social aspect of it is very, very important.
I think it's very true, Rob, that yeah, having that already figured out before you start bringing people in and growing is extremely important. What's important to you as a business owner? What's important to your business? Because it is your business, but yeah, there's still social and laws and rules and everything that regulate that. But it's on you as a business owner to know that. Mr. Hendrick raised his hand. I didn't even have to volunteer him. Hi, Hendrick.
Evening, Sondra. Yeah, today I just decided to raise my hand without you having to look, with what Rob just touched on now. I think with regards to ethics, it's very important that as a business owner, you need to lay the foundation for all the recruits that are going to join the company at the later stage. Because if you do not have all these things in place, and you do not set the standard, you do not follow the regulations and the laws of wherever you are operating, people that join your company at the later stage will also just come and do as they please. And it's very difficult for you to manage people if you do not have policies in place which governs how the company needs to be managed on a day-to-day basis, and not only by your top management, and also by the people that we interact with when we come into the company, because again, those are the people that will actually get you further. Those are the people that their interaction with your clients will either bring in more people, as most of us know that in business, word of mouth can go a long way. So having your house in order helps in the sense that everyone comes and knows where to toe the line. That's Hendrick from Teresano Earth Movers in Mpumalanga.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And this is something that I think Hendrick and Marlon will understand very well, because Hendrick being one of the students through the Ignite program with Mancosa, and Marlon being one of the coaches on the Ignite program with Mancosa, when we started out that space, one of the startup entrepreneurs may be looking at corporate governance. Why do you want me to understand and learn corporate governance? What has that got to do with me? I'm a solo entrepreneur. Well, the reality is it's got absolutely everything to do with you as a solo entrepreneur, because you're looking to build, you're looking to grow, and this is the space that you're looking to grow into. And on the Ignite program, and I will give a shout out to Mancosa because we are going to be running that program again coming up shortly. I think the launch date is the 22nd of June. So I've got a lot of interviews coming up. But in that space, one of the very first things that they learn is, who am I? What am I about? What are my values? And it may sound very, very wishy-washy, but your whole business is based on who you are and your values. And if you take a look at those values become your governance. It's why you started your business in the very first place. So, to those of you that are out there that are solo entrepreneurs, don't think this topic is not meant for me. This is something that you should be paying attention to from the very beginning. Otherwise, your space will outgrow you, and you cannot manage the space. If you have these things in place, as you grow, you've already developed what it is you need to govern your space. And I think it's extremely important. Extremely, extremely. Sorry, Hendrick, you got your hand up again.
Yes, if I can just add with regards to a solo entrepreneur, but remember, when you start a business, it's not just to say, no, I need a business to get me from point A to point B. You are thinking in the line of, this business at one stage is going to have a board of directors, it's going to grow to this level. So it starts now, while you are still a solo entrepreneur, to lay down or to make it clear for everyone that's going to join the company or the business at a later stage, to know as to what are we buying into. Before people join the company, they need to know what is expected of them. Before people join the company, they need to know what is your long-term and your short-term vision. Because again, we need to be at a state where it's very easy for us to explain the difference between being self-employed and being an entrepreneur. One, the company needs to go on even in your absence. So if you are not there and then the company needs to shut down its doors, wait for you, then you are not an entrepreneur. You are actually self-employed, in the sense that you are just creating a salary for yourself at the end of the month. So if you need to be an entrepreneur, be it you're starting your business as a solo entrepreneur, at the end of the day, your long-term vision would be, I need my company to be at this level, to be one of the best in what we do. So you need those ethics, you need those policies to make it easier for you to screen the people that you are going to bring into the company.
I love that. I love that, Hendrick. Very, very true. And lots of conversation on the live YouTube. Grant and Gareth and Mr. L are chatting away, and we're talking about communication is so key as a business owner, not only with your clients, but also within your company, like making sure you communicate. I asked him for one tip. My other tip would be is that you do something. So people tell me, I don't have any policies and procedures. And I'll be like, you do it. You deliver something. You do some way of doing that. So you writing it down. I've given people the assignment of writing everything they do from the moment they start their business day till the end of the business day for 3 days, and see where the patterns are and what processes they do. Because you do it anyways. It's just a matter of writing it down and getting it out of your head, and everything else is extremely important. And that's an easy way to start figuring out what your SOPs are, because a fancy word for instructions on how you do something, because I think some of those words can be intimidating to people. And And if you don't have a process, sometimes you can Google processes online and things like that. There's always resources out there to help you if you don't know how to understand or don't know how to do something. I definitely think ethics, of course, is a big part of that. And then, yeah, communication, I think, is the other key that everybody's talking about online. So Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm going to step out of turn, and instead of being a host, I'm going to make a statement. First of all, I'm extremely proud to have both one of my coaches and one of my students networking in exactly the same space, and then to have that level of one of the students stepping into a space and going, "This is my thought process." That is beyond for me. So super proud. The other thing is that I think something that Hendrick mentioned that really it gets to me in a way where it creates the understanding of what is the difference between somebody that is just self-employed and then also the space of what being an entrepreneur is. And we all know that entrepreneurs are people they're driven. They've got this thing where they're like, I want to build this, I want to grow this, but they don't necessarily understand all the processes involved in the background to build it out beyond themselves. And I think this is a great platform and a great conversation to be having, especially to have people like Rob in this space. If we're looking at communication and understanding communication, then it's great to have Krista in this space. And just to understand the difference of how do we actually build something out, utilizing corporate governance, although we're all solo entrepreneurs, but we're stepping into that space of, and I know that Hendrick has stepped into that space where he has employees, where it's not just Hendrick, he has employees. So, that understanding of how do I utilize what I've learned to create something that goes beyond myself. And then we go all the way back to the beginning, the drawing board, where it's like, okay, so in order to create some corporate governance, I need to understand processes. And that's when we have people like Sondra, to understand that process, creating that process. Maybe a solo entrepreneur, I do this particular thing, I just haven't yet documented what my processes are. And you cannot throw ethics into a space if you're not throwing it at a particular set of, these are my procedures. Now, how do we do those procedures with ethics? And how do we do those procedures and create those spaces that everybody understands that that is how we function? So if I look at the room and the people in the room, I think the topic is absolutely brilliant. I would love to hear from Krista in regards to how do we, with corporate governance and ethics and that communication, and that's where Krista is great, how do we bring that communication into that space? Because I know that Krista is probably one of the best writers I've ever met.
Well, thank you, Peter. I think that delivering ethics in the communication space. So as a writer, I look at a few different ethical issues. One is the way that I conduct research. As a writer, I use guided research processes. My clients guide my research in terms of they will talk about what they are familiar with, their expertise, their voice, their point of view. And I will still do my own outside research, but I will focus on trusted sources. Because if I'm not focusing on trusted sources, then I'm looking at competitors. And I like to joke with my clients, yeah, you don't trust your competitors, do you? Because sometimes that's the trap that people fall into. Oh, my writer can just study my competitor and learn what they need to know if I don't have content. And that's not really true. And not to mention, you can't cite your competitor as a source, right? As a trusted source. So that's important. That's one. Another area, should I keep going? Because there's quite a bit of ethics that I deal with in communications. I'm not sure how much you want to.
I would love for you to keep going because this is gold.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Another ethical issue in communications is whether you're allowed to cite a source, whether it's on a blog post, a book, and that can actually get quite complicated, I'm learning. And I didn't learn this in school. So I am navigating that minefield, especially when I write books for clients, learning what I can and cannot source by looking at their content, their terms and conditions, publication guidelines, content guidelines, because you do not want to get caught doing this and then have somebody either sue you or come after you in some other way, perhaps ruin a reputation because you did something you weren't supposed to. So I definitely don't want to do that as a writer, nor do I want to ruin a client's reputation. I work with a lot of people here in the US where I live, and unfortunately the US is what they call a litigious society, meaning too many people sue too many other people, sometimes for very silly and unfortunate reasons. So it's very important to know about those types of guidelines. And I'm shocked to discover that not everyone wants to be linked to. Not everyone wants their information to be linked to directly. Sometimes people want the homepage, which makes sense for marketing reasons. Sometimes people just don't want certain things disclosed, certain things cited by other people. So for example, if somebody has a methodology and they have a blog post about the 3 things, whatever, they might actually have terms in there, and they wrote a book and they have this whole ecosystem based on it. They might have terms that say you can only mention one of my 3 pillars. You can't mention all 3 because that's my system. And the next ethical issue that I run into is when I write about the law for non-lawyers. Now I know every country you write for has different or you cater to has different restrictions on this. But the bottom line is that you don't want to be giving legal advice that an attorney would give. You want to be talking about the law, legal information, citing people who are willing to be cited as far as their interpretations. But so yeah, there's a lot of ethics in writing, and I'm coming across these types of issues more and more as a ghostwriter and blogger for my own clients with my business Wise Words That Matter. I know that was a lot. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts on that?
No, it was really good, Krista. Like you said, you have to not only take into account what you're writing for, but who you're citing and how they want to be cited. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I guess one last thing, it's about building trust. So my clients have to trust me, but also their people need to trust them. And if the content isn't doing that, if the content isn't building trust, then it's not content I'm going to write.
I love that. I love that, Krista. Yeah. Trust is one thing I like. I'm very big on relationship building as a coach. I think that's extremely important. If my clients don't trust me, it's going to make a really rough coaching atmosphere. I love that. I love it. Marlon, I would love for you to talk about how this incorporates into like the marketing field, since that's your amazing expertise, like structure, and like how do you have to navigate that for other people when you're doing marketing for all the different types of industries and stuff.
Thanks, Sondra. Yeah, very, very interesting. It's always when you engage with the different industries, you start to see how they are structured. And I think depending on your field, well, and especially if you're in these highly regulated spaces, doctors, lawyers, how you communicate is so important. Especially in South Africa, you can't, they call it touting. So in other words, you can't say, I am good, I am really good at. You have to actually, you can't actually speak about yourself in that way. So testimonials and things like that are actually frowned upon in those spaces. So you have to be a little bit smarter about how you communicate about yourself. And it's what I find interesting about those spaces, that then they become very wary about how they want to communicate. The thing is, what I've noticed is, especially around people's data now, is really, really important. So how you handling it, and when we're communicating with other people in the space of marketing, that it's actually done in a ethical way. And I say I almost did this ethical because at the end of the day, I mean, I'm pretty sure all of you are getting emails still, and there's tons of laws around this stuff, Poppy and all that, and then what they call the GDPR, and people are still kind of skirting those rules. But the idea here is that how you communicate, how you find and use people's information is really, really, really important, because that can get you into a lot of trouble. I think for me, and this is an interesting one around governance, especially as somebody who's I'm pretty sure, like many of you, in not just my marketing is my space, I get the opportunity to work with other people as a group, right? As part of a group in a specific initiative. And my question here is, when you are starting something and you don't know where it's going to go. So like Hendrick said, it might be, you have this dream that it's going to be big. And now my question is, you don't know what you don't know. And in some cases now, like we spoke about, accountants, the legal field, the medical field, those are highly regulated, right? But then there's other spaces that there may not be. How do you actually now set up a structure that allows for some kind of flexibility to grow, and at the same time set up a structure that grows? I don't know if that is a clear enough question, because within the legal field, for example, and within with the medical, they just hide. You don't see many of them actually trying to market themselves until the very last minute, and then they get themselves into trouble because they kind of go with whoever is available. And I've seen that happen numerous times, unless they really go through the effort of trying to learn the law, figure it out, and then go through the specific steps to create that specific process within the business, or work with really good people, which end up sometimes costing a lot, whatever. But the question is, really, how do you sort of set yourself up? And I think this is to Rob, maybe, to grow, because like I said, you don't know what you don't know. So how do you prepare for something you don't know?
That's a very interesting question there, Marlon. So I think previous topics we've covered build on each other, right? So we've had some topics about, I think Peter did the planning one, and then I did the risk one, and I think it's not an easy kind of, this is how you do it, Marlon, but it's putting all of that together logically, and it gives you basically a roadmap to work towards, right? Because if you're working on bum luck to expand your business, it's not going to work, right? So if you've got your plan, you've got your kind of your risks covered, your frameworks. Part of the risks is heavily influenced on external factors. So if you're talking lawyers, you're talking accountants, there's a lot of policy, there's a lot of economic factors, and all of that needs to kind of come together in this kind of playbook for your business, right? So there's a very good methodology, the balanced scorecard, which kind of splits your your business into 4 broader categories, some financial goals, some operational goals, customer centric goals. And it's kind of, especially with a highly regulated business, it would be bringing all those elements into your initial planning around your playbook for your company. And one of those elements would be this, what we're talking about, the corporate governance wing, because in corporate governance, you're going to have some frameworks on what you do with finances. So now you're getting excess money. What do you do with that? And you would have to logically kind of paint a picture of where you want to go, and then look at where you are now and build that bridge between the two. Now, let's say in the accounting space, you're going to have to hire a lot of people to do a lot of the bookkeeping type of work. So you would think through, okay, now what do I need to do? I need a resource to assist me? Is there a company that can help me? Can I do it myself? And same with the lawyers, you're going to have a stream of younglings coming into the organization, and you'll need to be able to, do you have enough time to mentor these people yourself, teach them yourself, in order to expand the kind of engine room of the business,
Yeah, and so okay, so I actually have a specific example without trying to be too specific. So currently in South Africa, there's a big change that's happening in the property world. Okay, that legislative change is shifting how the big guys, the big companies are going to definitely, the money is going to change hands, and especially the biggest problem is actually it's kicking out the middle. So everybody that's in the middle, who's not got the right structure that's set up in a BE sort of way, is going to fall. They can't operate, right? So that is crazy. And I mean, for our US people, that means like it's affirmative action basically happening in corporate. And what that ends up what that's doing is it's pushing out the middle. So because now you're gonna be forced to either bend the rules so that you can stay below a threshold and not have to conform, or you don't grow, right? So now you're like, you're stuck in this, you have to do kind of business with the devil so that you can grow the business. So this is like, and the thing is, many people don't even know this is happening. And this is what's getting to my question, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. Some people are even entering into the space without that prior knowledge. Maybe even there's new accreditations coming into the space that they're not even aware of. So now you open up a business, there's all of a sudden these laws, plus there's like a whole bunch of things that makes you, what's the word, non-compliant like that. How this is the thing. And as small business, we don't pay attention to these things. We're not really sitting there in the Gazette, trying to figure out all this stuff.
Yeah.
We just, oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think, just to jump back in on that, Marlon, I think that it is a important aspect even for like a startup or solopreneur to get some form of understanding about, right? Because things like that can make or break a business or close a business. And especially in a highly regulated environment, if you know that the space you're in, like let's say your space with Poppy is very, very important for how you operate. So you would need to find a source of kind of accurate information that you can get access to in relation to that space. It's not saying now you must go and watch Policy Watch and understand what Parliament is talking about and what they are suggesting. But generally, you would need to put aside a bit of time to track a few of the areas that would most affect your business. So if it's an accounting, then you would need to be plugged into some of the regulators to see, as an example, with the financial reporting, they will bring out a new way to do things and give you whatever it is 2 years before it becomes mandatory, and with communication regulations, I know some countries are way more strict in terms of what is allowed, but like in South Africa now, with the protection of personal information, it's getting that way, where you can't just spam email a bunch of people, or randomly phone them and say, hey, let's do business out of the blue. So it's an important element on that policy side, which is part of corporate governance, is to try and, there's a lot of sources, but find one relevant to your business, because generally if there's a change coming up that's going to impact, if you're in training and you mentioned accreditation, that there's going to be a major shift in how that works, you best be aware of it. Otherwise, you're not going to have a business when that change comes up, I know it's a bit of a daunting data task, but there are obviously sources, like we through the accounting academy and the legal academy, we employ people to write about the changes or policy updates and changes and regulatory changes. But there are kind of decent sources out there, or country specific sources, where they will let you know what is changing in this certain industry and what is potentially changing. Because you often have quite a lot of time in most cases to be involved in that change process as well. I know, Sondra, your side, but our side, we'll have like a bill that gets put out, and it's in the news and it's out for comment, and it kind of gives you a very good idea of what is going to come.
Yeah, I like that. And I think if I take it back to the very beginning, if we take a look how everything is a building block for the next step to be built on top of. So if we take a look at solo entrepreneurs and we go, okay, right, so you want to create your space of corporate governance to be prepared for when you grow. You cannot do that until you understand what your processes are. And you can't understand what your processes are unless you actually document them. So it creates the space of everything becomes the feeding ground for the next space and the next space and the next space. And if you take a look at the topics that we've already covered, there is this flow of information that if you go and look into that content and you start getting to understand that content, you can create that space of building from the beginning all the way through to what we're discussing right now, which I think is very important because it is a journey. So it has to be designed as a journey. It has to be spoken about as a journey. So I think it would be very good for some of the people in the that are actually watching this live, go back to some of the previous topics and take a look at how we've worked that through and how we've actually gotten to this point now. Because if you're just dealing with this topic that we're talking about now, you need to understand that we've created a whole lot of stepping stones before this to get to this point. So that would be a good way to start. Also, in response to Marlon, if you're building something and you expect it to grow, obviously you need to be prepared for it to grow. And part of that preparation is either conforming or figuring out a way that you don't have to conform, but it still has to be ethical. And sometimes, and I know this, sometimes they make it almost impossible. They make it almost impossible because either they're trying to regulate it, and as a business owner, you don't exactly want to be regulated because that messes with your income. So how do you create that ground? How do you conform without conforming? How do you push to grow, push forward when it's being made almost impossible? The answer to that is it's very difficult. However, if you are in the know and you know what is going on, and by when you have to conform, you can actually be part of that growth going forward, making sure that when everything does take place and everything is regulated and everything has to conform, that you've already done that and you're 10 steps ahead. Because once that conformity takes place, it creates a space for new ideas or new ways of thinking. You want to be part of that. You've already done your groundwork. You're already prepared for this. You're 10 steps ahead. But in order to be 10 steps ahead, you've got to understand what that process is. So, and unfortunately, when it comes to like sitting in a court and there's a judge in front of you and they go, but these are the regulations, you can't just go, well, oops, my bad, I didn't know. They're still going to hold you liable. So you're going to want to be ahead of that game. And if many other people in the world were like Marlon, we would know that he's already ahead of the game. You can just tell it by the way he's speaking. So I'm pretty sure that once you've gone through this experience, you will have figured out a way to be not only conformed but ahead of everybody else.
Peter, if I can jump in, and I actually loved exactly what you said there, and I think what Rob said was a good piece of nugget there, because obviously it's nice to have, it's good to be connected to good resources, and one of them is obviously going back to the content that's already been spoken about here. And then another one is like being part of groups that are ahead of the game or are in the game much further ahead of you. Then you can sort of navigate much easier. Don't just go into a space blind, go into a space with being a bit educated by asking people that are ahead of you. So that's brilliant advice. Thank you.
I love that, Marlon, because there's usually somebody that's ahead of you. Almost always. There's somebody ahead of you. And really, it's about resources. I always tell people, I might not know it, but I bet somebody knows it in my circles. So I'm not the expert on everything. I don't want to be. That's why I have resources, and that's why I built out resources and people and surround myself in communities all over the world, because, businesses all over the world. And yes, even in the US, like we can go state by state. It's not even like there's US law and there's state law and there's blah, 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 blah. So in the US, we have to not only the law that we're operating in, the state we're operating in, but sometimes we have to know the laws that we're operating where our client is. So it can get very tedious sometimes. But I think the biggest thing is for me is that to know your resources and have good resources. Don't be an island. I always tell people, don't be an island. Solo entrepreneurship does not need to be solo. It's the truth. You can make it solo. You could stay there and be solo all you want. I think that leads to burnout. I think that leads to mistakes and lots of other things that are just not pleasant as a business owner. So, tap into a YouTube channel like this where we talk about these things, a community like Explore ProTech where we help each other through these things, and other places like that, so that you have the resources and you don't have to be alone. I know in my co-working community, we're talking about that right now. You don't have to be alone. You don't have to do it out alone. So tap into the resources. Go ahead, Peter. Then we'll have to start wrapping up.
Yeah, I was actually just going to ask how much time we actually have left. We're talking about communities and resources. I'm going to go a little off topic. When you're part of a community, you want to strategically actually position yourself with the relationships that you build with people that actually are ahead of the game that you're playing. And this is something important that was mentioned. Marlon, you mentioned it. Sondra, you also mentioned it. It's extremely important. Otherwise, it's very difficult to see what your future is. If you can mold your future around a journey that somebody else has already taken, then they can actually give you the steps. Oh, these are the steps that I took. these are the mistakes that I made, avoid those. You can save yourself a whole load of headache. There is a power within community that is second to none, which is pretty much why every single thing that we do, project-wise, whether it's all created around social impact, and it's all created around community building. All of it. There is a power in that. This is where I'm going to go off topic. To showcase the power of community, we have a member in our community that is doing a fundraiser, and he is running a marathon. And that marathon is he's doing it to raise funds for children with cancer. And to me, I think that is a cause worth getting behind. The power of the community comes in where a member of the community can go, hey guys, as part of this community, I am doing this. And then instead of it being driven by one person who's perhaps running the marathon, God knows I am not running a marathon in support of that, because I wouldn't make it to the end. But we all know that Dr. Mayer will make it to the end. So this is the power of community. He may be running the race, but he's got a whole bunch of people around him that makes that journey just that much easier. So there is a power in that. So if you're up there, you don't know, what processes do I have to put in place? How do I do this? What is the journey? What does it look like? Well, then network with people that are on the same journey. It becomes pretty much like this. We can have a topic. We can discuss things through. You can say, well, this is where I am, or this is where I'm stuck. And people can respond by going, well, I used to be stuck like that. I did this and it didn't work, so don't do that. But then I did this and it did work. So avoid the mistake and try it this way. It also helps a lot if you've already got your processes down. If you don't, then you are going to want to speak to Sondra. Because if you don't have your processes down, then you cannot build out your corporate governance space, because you've got nothing to build it on. So go back in the topics, go and see what you actually have access to, because I think in those topics, we did, if I'm not mistaken, Sondra, we did put access to links for your workshop. So if you don't have your processes down, get them down. It's not that difficult. It may seem difficult, but Sondra makes it look easy, or easier. So go backwards in the topics and go take a look at that. And then step back into this conversation and see how you build on top of that. I think how Rob brought across this topic was absolutely brilliant. So it just gives us more meat on the bones, and it gives us more to discuss, another building block to support what our next topic will be. So if you're in the audience, go backwards, take a look at the links in the description. I know that there is access there for Sondra's workshops. You will not be disappointed. And that's me. Over and out.
Yeah, I think it's important. And also, we have Miss Susan, our back-end person, does have the next topic scheduled out, so you can look ahead too. If there's a topic that you want to make sure you're part of or tune in for, those are laid out and under the live tab in YouTube's Explore ProTech channel. I can say all those words. Yeah, I'm grateful for the topic. It is definitely something I do have in my quarterly review workshop, is to review your SOPs and your systems. So I do think it's a valuable thing to do and to know, because things change, and if you're not going back, it's kind of like we talk about the business plan's a living document. Your SOPs are a living document too. You know, there's going to be changes, whether it's literally law changes, or if it's just the way you operate, or maybe somebody you brought in had a better methodology than you. I mean, there's nothing wrong with making changes to your SOPs. They're not a chiseled in stone testament that you can change, because you want to improve and grow, and that's part of growing too. As you grow, you might be like, yep, that worked for a company of 5, it doesn't work for a company of 500. So you have to be able to be fluid in that, and that's extremely important. Peter, I think we have to wrap up. We are at the top of the hour. Do you want to talk about what you represent, and I'll go, and then you can.
Do I want to talk about what I represent? Not really, but I will. So in this space, we've got two spaces. We've got Explore ProTech, which is the relationship-based space. In that space, we have a network of people that are entrepreneurs from around the world, and it's all about relationship building. At the same time, we have the Business Academy Cafe. And the Business Academy Cafe is the space that is bringing you the topics. It's bringing you this particular journey. It's kind of mapping out the space. It gives us access to content. It gives us access to product courses that can actually take you on this journey instead of you trying to do this journey all by yourself. It gives you access to some of our members' product, and those products have actually been very strategically chosen to be part of the journey. We don't want to waste anybody's time, and we want to make the journey a whole lot easier. So that's the space, and it's all about how do we tackle the space of unemployment. And this is our method. Let's teach them entrepreneurship. Let's get them started. Let's get them on an actual journey that we can actually support with the network of professionals that we've already built. And as you can see, there are some incredible professionals on the screen. So I'm extremely proud of all the people that arrive in this space, and I can look at them and go, they've been this much of a part of our journey, so they can be part of your journey too. So, and that would be me. Peace out.
I love that, Peter. I want to give a shout out to Mr. Al, Gareth, and Grant, who were chatting with me on YouTube today. So thank you. I think that's one thing that makes us very unique, is that you can have a conversation on YouTube with us while we're doing the show. So please share, like, and subscribe. We want to shout out to Susan, who does the back end show notes. She transcribes and moves us over to Spotify. So make sure you're following us on Spotify. And she does our graphics. And then Somerville, who helps with social media, of course. My name is Sondra, and I am the owner of Get It Done Coaching, and I help you get things done by helping you set your goals and create bite-sized action plans. As our prestigious Miss Nestine says, we wish that all your entrepreneur dreams come true, and we